Who cares about what this guy's saying anyway? Emma, let's have a chat about me. Ian seems determined to get along with Emma and wants to steer the conversation towards himself. However, Emma's response doesn't seem very positive, and she appears more interested in talking to me. Ian's mood starts to sour as he tries to say something to me. Just then, a scream erupts from the neighboring table. Ach! When we looked in the direction from which the scream came, we saw that one of the female doctors had collapsed. I immediately rushed over. Upon checking her pulse, I could tell it had become extremely weak. Do you have an AED? I quickly began issuing instructions, surprising those around me with my speed. My name is Kazuyoshi Takeda, and I'm 35 years old. I'm still unmarried at this age. In simple terms, my job is somewhat like freelancing, offering me a flexible work schedule. I recently ran into Ian, a classmate from high school, by chance while walking around town. We weren't particularly close, but since I dropped out of high school, a sense of nostalgia made me impulsively agree to go out for drinks. The following weekend, we went out for drinks. When I mentioned that I was still single, he said, "Whoa, really? Well, we're in the same boat then. I'm not married either, you know. In that case, we're planning a group date soon. You should come along," he said, inviting me to the group date. Up to this point, I had been enjoying my carefree single life and hadn't found the idea of marriage particularly appealing. However, I figured it could be a good social experience, so I decided to go along and accepted the invitation. However, once I went, I ended up being disappointed by the reason Ian had invited me to the group date. It turned out that Ian had invited me to serve as his wingman. I had dropped out of high school, so I didn't know, but Ian had graduated from a prestigious university and now works at a well-known trading company that everyone is familiar with. It seems that they thought it would be better for me to be alongside as a comparison. This guy, actually dropped out of high school. Hey, he just has a junior high school education. That's someone you don't see these days. Haha. Of course, saying something like that is because you hope girls will ask you, "So are you a college graduate then?" Ian pretends to be modest and then mentions the name of his university. By doing so, the girls are impressed. I can't really see how doing this would improve his standing with the girls, but Ian seems to firmly believe that his educational background is something that piques their interest. And also, because I dropped out of high school, people often assume I'm poor and make fun of me with poverty-related jokes. I mean, I usually spend around $50 just on lunch. If it's less than that, it feels like you're a poor person, doesn't it? Oh, Casey, how much do you spend on lunch? When I answer that I often buy cup ramen from the one-coin shop and eat it, they burst into laughter and mock me, finding it amusing for some reason. You actually go to the one-coin shop? Seriously, there's a limit to being po, and them finishing your lunch with that is just unbelievable. I know that he wants to emphasize that he spends $50 on lunch each time and wants to show that he's doing something remarkable, regardless of what others might eat for lunch. It seems like he wants to highlight his own choices and preferences. I'm not sure where Ian is bringing up the conversation from, but he seems to be hosting mixer events regularly. The participants also include a variety of professions, such as flight attendants, nurses, and child care workers. One day, there was even a mixer with aspiring talents. Rather than coming to find a marriage partner, I found it interesting to be able to talk with people from various professions, so I made it a point to attend whenever I was invited. Assuming that I come every time I'm invited, he arbitrarily concludes that I must be an idle person who doesn't work seriously, and he uses this as another topic of conversation. This guy, despite being po, he's not even working properly, always claiming to have so much free time, Such an incredibly idle person. If you have time, why not work? By the way, I have never told Ian that I have free time. Moreover, my work schedule isn't fixed. But I am employed and working diligently. As the fabricated stories became excessive, when I expressed my discontent, Ian defended himself with, "It's just a joke for the sake of conversation during drinking sessions. Come on, bro, it's just for fun. It's all in good spirits. Come on, join in the conversation and help liven things up for the girls." He says, coming up with excuses like that. While it might not seem that fabricated stories would actually excite the girls, I thought it wouldn't be very mature to keep complaining about it. So I started refraining from expressing my discontent too much. Next week's mixer is going to be amazing. Guess what? It's a mixer with female doctors. If we can get married to them, life will be easier. So let's aim for it. Then one day, Ian contacted me with an excited voice, saying, "It's quite impressive how he consistently comes up with such stories. In a way, it's a talent to be able to generate these narratives." On the day of the mixer, I headed to the venue in my usual attire. I didn't go out of my way to dress up just because it was a mixer. I wanted to have a casual drink and simply engage in conversations about various industries. As for Ukita, he was decked out in designer brands to an extent that was almost unbelievable from my perspective. Ironically, it made him come across as tacky to me. I'm not sure how he appears to the girls, though. When we arrived at the venue, Nikita was already there waiting. "Today, we're dealing with female doctors, you know." I put in more effort than usual and left work early. He's quite tactless. I thought he should focus on his job properly. But if I were to say something like that, he'd probably label me as a killjoy. So I stayed silent. But Ian doesn't hold back from mocking me when he sees me. "Hey, what's your clothes? We're in front of the female doctors today, you know. Don't you have dressed a bit better? Your clothes look cheap. Oh, is this your best attire? Because you're too po." Ha! I don't understand why he feels the need to belittle me like this even before we're in the company of women. I thought he simply enjoys looking down on others fundamentally. When the appointed time came, the waitstaff gently slid open the sliding doors to our private room and informed us, "Your guests have arrived." Following the waitstaff, 5 women entered as they were urged. This time, it's a 5 vs. 5 mixer. Of course, Ian has positioned himself next to me to support my role. Each of the women who entered is stunningly beautiful, to the extent that you would turn your head if you saw them on the street. It's as if they are all incredibly attractive female doctors. Their skin is well taken care of. And while I don't recognize the brand names, the clothes and bags they wear appear luxurious. I somehow felt a pleasant fragrance in the air when the women entered. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emma. Please take care of me." "Nice to meet you, too. I'm Casey." The girl sitting directly in front of me seems to be named Emma. Among the group of stunning female doctors, she stands out as remarkably beautiful. Her appearance could easily pass for that of a celebrity. Moreover, given that she's a doctor, it seems that the term "beauty with brains" was coined just for her. She exudes an elegant and refined aura that gives off an impression of intelligence, all while maintaining an approachable demeanor that doesn't make one feel belittled. Although I have no interest in marriage, seeing such beauty in front of me has admittedly made me a bit nervous. When I glance at Ian beside me, he looks as if his eyes have turned into hearts due to his excitement. Ian whispered to me softly, "Hey, come on, support me. I absolutely want to make Emma my girlfriend." Even if I didn't support him, he would probably continue talking behind my back. So I figured it wouldn't make much of a difference. He's truly a self-centered guy. "How old are you, Emma?" Ian was asking in a voice that sounded nothing like his usual self. as if he were trying to be charming. I was taken aback by the fact that he could produce such a voice. But since Emma didn't know his regular tone, she responded naturally. I'm 26. She's 9 years younger than us. No wonder her skin is so beautiful. I know around 26 is the best age for girls, right? Ian was engaging in vague conversation to flatter her. I actually find women in their 30s more cool and attractive. Oh, I was thinking the same thing. Being in your 30s is even better, right? What is Ian saying? He just said a moment ago that 26 was the best age, while I mentally pointed out the inconsistency. Emma chuckled a bit at Ian's silliness. It seems like she's starting to relax. As time went on, Ian's usual bragging stories began. The ones where he belittles me to make himself appear relatively cooler. This guy, you know, he's actually just a junior high school graduate. It's hard to believe in this day and age, right? He usually says he dropped out of high school, but it seems like he's quite taken with Emma. So he's going even further with his exaggerations. Whether I dropped out of high school or junior high school, it doesn't bother me. But he's certainly quite straightforward about it. Normally, at this point, girls would ask Ian about his educational background. But Emma doesn't seem interested and doesn't ask, maybe thinking it would sound uncool to bring up his education himself. Ian proceeds to mock my supposed poverty, and to make matters worse, he's actually Poe, you know. I'm the one treating everyone at this mixer. By the way, it's true that if you have a low education, you can't make much money. By the way, I've never been treated to anything by Ian. I thought this was something worth objecting to. But right now he seems so infatuated with Emma and desperately trying to draw her attention that it's probably pointless to say anything. I can already imagine Ian getting furious if I were to speak up now. However, Emma doesn't seem particularly interested in Ian. She hasn't asked him any questions at all. In fact, she appears to be interested in me, as she starts asking me various questions. Why did you decide to start working right after junior high school? Weren't you interested in going to high school? She asked me these questions, so I explained that I didn't immediately start working after junior high school, but rather dropped out of high school and started working. This seemed to pique her interest even more, as she then asked why I dropped out of high school. I had no reason to hide it, so I shared that my father passed away when I was in my first year of high school, and my mother was also in Poe Health, taking care of my 2 younger brothers. That's why I left high school and started working. For some reason, Emma was listening to these stories with great interest. As she gazed at me with her beautiful face, I couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. Just as I was wondering why she was so intrigued by such mundane stories, Ian, who seemed to be even more interested than I thought, interrupted. Enough of his stories. Let's move on. Emma, let's talk about me and with me. Ian seems determined to get along with Emma and wants to steer the conversation towards himself. However, Emma's response doesn't seem very positive, and she appears more interested in talking to me. Ian's mood starts to sour as he tries to say something to me. Just then, a scream erupts from the neighboring table. Ach, wondering what's happening, I look over and to my surprise, one of the female doctors has collapsed. I immediately rush over. When I check her pulse, it's very weak. Do you have an AED? I quickly issued instructions that startle those around me. I asked the waitstaff, but understandably, a restaurant doesn't have an AED. I dashed out of the restaurant and headed to the nearest train station. It's not widely known, but most train stations are equipped with AEDs. I runned as like wind, explained the situation, and borrowed the AED. I quickly returned to the restaurant. When I check her pulse, there's no pulse anymore. It's a critical situation. I immediately use the AED and attempt resuscitation. After a few attempts, I managed to detect a pulse. It seems like I've successfully revived her. Feeling relieved, emergency medical personnel arrive on the scene. She experienced a temporary cardiac arrest, but we managed to revive her with the AED. Thank you for your help. I informed the emergency medical personnel, and they thanked me before taking the collapsed female doctor away. Given that her pulse seemed to have strengthened, she should be all right. My past experiences have proven useful. I'm glad. Once the situation calms down, the women gather around me and start bombarding me with questions. You took such decisive action. What do you do for a living? It seemed like you had some medical knowledge as well. It seems the women were embarrassed by the fact that they are doctors themselves, but were mostly flustered and couldn't do much. At the same time, they genuinely feel relieved that their colleague was saved thanks to my quick judgment that they had thought was mere amateurism. They also appear quite interested in my ability to act swiftly and appropriately. Oh, well, I dabbled in medicine a bit in the past. As I respond, Ian chimes in to tease me. Huh? You, a junior high school dropout, dabbling in medicine? What does that even mean? Medicine and you are on completely opposite ends. Don't try to show off. You probably just watched medical dramas or read manga, did you? That's not the case. But before I could think about how to respond, Emma interjected. I guess that's who you are. KZ, you're DR. All Might, right? I'm a fan of yours. The women's eyes light up at her words. What? Is that true? You're DR. All Might. As the women go into excited chatter, the men wear puzzled expressions, forming question marks above their heads. I figure that at this point, there's no sense in hiding it, so I affirm it. I was trying to keep it a secret, but did it get out? Yes, actually, I'm DR, All Might. Upon hearing those words, the women become even more excited. Among them, Emma appears to be the most delighted. However, Ian seems to be quite unhappy with the attention I'm receiving from the women. Hey, he interjects. What's is that? DR, what? I don't really get it. Is he a famous person? Well, if I don't know about him, he can't be that important, I guess. He says this, but Emma strongly disagrees with his statement. What are you saying? Just because you're not familiar with him doesn't mean he's insignificant. DR, All Might is a leading figure in medical fiction. He's been churning out bestsellers that have sold over 1 million copies, and they're even getting adapted into dramas. The novels are so accurate that even doctors find them informative. The author is most likely a doctor himself, given the precise descriptions. It seems like Emma is setting the record straight about DR, All Might's significance. Emma's enthusiastic response could be expected, since she mentioned being my fan earlier. Considering the way Ian ridiculed me, it's highly unlikely he'll find favor with Emma. In reality, I'm a writer, specializing in medical fiction. There's a reason behind this choice. After dropping out of high school, I found employment at a local factory, where the owner took a liking to me. Interestingly, the owner had desired to attend university as well, but family circumstances forced him to graduate high school and immediately take over the family business at the factory. Sympathizing with my similar situation, he extended his kindness to me. Upon learning that I had left the top school in our prefecture and had excelled academically there, he urged me to go to university, offering to cover the expenses. Despite my hesitations, he assured me that I could repay him someday. Taking him up on his offer, I took the high school equivalency exam and eventually went to university. I chose to study medicine as I hoped my medical knowledge could be of some use due to my mother's frail health. However, during my 6th year of medical school, just as I was nearing the path to becoming a doctor, my mother passed away. Losing my motivation to become a doctor, I ultimately abandoned the path of medicine, despite having spent 6 years attending school and receiving financial support. The loss of the motivation to heal my mother was a significant blow. For about a year after that, I drifted aimlessly. I occasionally helped out at the factory, but I lacked any real drive and led a careless lifestyle. My lack of strong reaction to Ian's mockery is rooted in the fact that I genuinely recognize my own shortcomings. It seems I was basically a mess of a person. However, even for someone like me, a turning point arrived. A blog I had been casually writing during my free time caught the attention of a publishing company. Despite my pastime of writing fiction and novels, I never dreamed of becoming an author. Nonetheless, I had been serializing my work on my blog just for the sake of it. My medical background had influenced the medical-themed fiction I was writing, which turned out to have impressively realistic descriptions. This gained some attention and eventually led the publishing company to contact me. The comments from the general public were full of praise, often speculating that a real doctor must have written the stories. Reading those comments became a source of enjoyment for me, although my true self was that of an indulgent and aimless person. When I wrote novels, I could forget about that part of myself. The joy of my life came from the praise I received from readers who enjoyed my novels. The publishing company suggested turning my work into a real book. Initially, I hesitated, feeling it was too much, but the publishing company assured me they would cover all costs and guaranteed that I wouldn't incur any losses. With their persuasion, I ultimately decided to take the leap into publishing. I continued to keep my ongoing serialized novel available for free on my blog, while I began working on new material for the book. It's quite different from the times when I used to write casually and leisurely as a hobby. Working with editors, my novel was heavily revised, but I managed to reach the point of publication after 5 months of hard work. Initially, I believed it wouldn't sell at all, but to my surprise, the novel sold like hotcakes. It seemed that fans of my blog had purchased the book, and their feedback and thoughts spread through SNS. Having my free serialized novel available on the blog likely helped as well. The blog novel acted as a sample, and readers probably thought that if I'm offering novels of this quality for free, then the paid version must be even better. In any case, after publishing my first novel, I quickly became a successful author. It took less than half a year from the release of my first novel to being called a best-selling author. The novel is even being adapted into a drama, and there's talk of a potential movie adaptation if the drama is successful. My life drastically changed thanks to writing, and I was able to repay the study loan I had borrowed from the kind-hearted owner of the factory. Speaking of which, how did Emma figure out that I'm Dr. All Might? I rarely make public appearances, partly because it's embarrassing to do so, and partly because I genuinely want my writing to be the sole basis of my recognition. There was a time when I had a photo alongside an interview about my background in a magazine shortly after my debut, but that magazine wasn't well known at all. It was almost a decade ago, and it's hard to believe that Emma would have seen that magazine. Thinking about T. Emma talks to me. I first learned about you when I was in high school. I read an interview with you in a certain magazine, and it left a strong impression on me. That's when I decided to pursue a career in medicine. Of course, I've read all of your books. They've been a guiding light for me in life. It seems that Emma had indeed read that magazine interview. Even so, I couldn't remember at all what I had said back then. But considering that it left an impression on Emma when she was a high school student, I must have said something quite meaningful. Despite being something I did myself, I feel like giving a thumbs up to my past self. It's heartwarming to think that the words I spoke had that kind of impact. Thank you for reading all of my novels. I never would have expected to meet one of my fans in a place like this today. To think that people who read my novels are inspired to pursue a career in medicine and actually become doctors. My novels are truly serving a purpose. Hearing that, the colleagues of Emma also chimed in. Reading your novels gives us a sense of pride as doctors. That's why your books are huge bestsellers among doctors. I believe everyone here is a fan of yours. Even though I gave up on becoming a doctor, if I can be of even a little help to the medical field, and if those doctors who found solace through my work go on to save patients, then maybe I'm also playing a small part in healthcare. Thank you. I naturally express my gratitude to the female doctors present. My own heart felt healed too. I had carried a lingering sense of regret for abandoning the path of medicine halfway through. I often wondered how things might have turned out if I had become a doctor, but that feeling seemed to have lifted today. That's why words of gratitude came out of me spontaneously. Oh, so you're a famous author. Why didn't you say anything about this until now? You're still just a high school dropout and a po guy. Ian, in his usual straightforward way, started questioning me. If I told people that you're an author, they'd just brag about it, wouldn't they? I hate that kind of thing. And besides, if I did say it, I'd become the center of attention at these gatherings. Is that what you want? You're the one who wants to be the only one getting attention, and you. When I spoke the truth, Ian's face turned red with embarrassment, and he fell silent. The person he had been belittling turned out to have a much higher social status than himself. Well, that would surely make anyone feel embarrassed. And then Emma added fuel to the fire. Ian, you've been belittling others to make yourself look better, haven't you? It's so obvious. And it's uncomfortable to listen to. I think the reason you haven't been successful in all those gatherings is because of that. People who put others down and brag about themselves are truly despicable. Ian seemed unable to hide his shock as he was told that everything he had been doing so far had backfired. Moreover, these words came from Emma, whom he had seemed to like the most. The shock must have been immeasurable. I'm leaving too. Ian weakly uttered these words and left the store. Although Ian attempted to leave, no one tried to stop him. His lack of intervention wasn't limited to the women. The absence of anyone, including the men, trying to stop him could suggest that he lacked popularity. He's a pitiable guy. Afterward, at the behest of the female doctors, we exchanged contact information and went out as a group. Of course, Ian was nowhere to be found. According to hearsay, Ian had become afraid of women and had even stopped participating in the group dates he used to enjoy. Word came that he had given up on marriage as well, so he might continue to live alone from now on. Subsequently, I met with the female doctor group a few times, and I ended up confessing my feelings for Emma and starting a relationship with her. We hit it off surprisingly well, and before I knew it, I too was thinking about marriage. While Emma seems to aspire to advance in her medical career, she also values our time together. I've had various experiences in life as well, but from now on, I intend to walk alongside Emma. I'm convinced that with Emma, I can surely lead a wonderful life. Right now, I truly feel happiness from the depths of my heart.